being able to make that type of an impact, not only in the waste that exists today and trying to collaborate with customers and partners around the globe to avoid emissions and make the best possible outcome, is being a part of the roadmap in paving the path of what does design for circularity look like.
Hi, I'm Larry Guthrie, Director of Content Strategy at the Society of Women Engineers. Welcome to Diverse, a SWE podcast. Today, we're talking with Cassie Gruber, who's the Director of Sustainability Business Solutions at Jabil. Cassie took a unique path to become a leader in sustainable manufacturing. So I'm excited to explore how her career evolved, the challenges and opportunities she sees in sustainable manufacturing, and how women engineers can play a role in accelerating the shift to a circular economy. Many thanks to Jabil for sponsoring this episode. And Cassie, it's so great to have you here. Welcome to Diverse.
Oh, hello, Larry. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really excited to be here and share on the SWE podcast my journey and my career. Thank you.
We are happy to have you. Let's just dive right in. Your career has taken you from studying art and philosophy to running an e-waste startup to leading sustainability business solutions for one of the largest manufacturing services companies in the world. That is quite a range. Can you share a couple of the key turning points that, helped shape that journey to bring you where you are today?
Yeah, thanks, Larry. I have to say, one of my biggest turning points would probably be after studying art and philosophy for almost a decade, and mind you, bartending during this whole time. I realized having two small children, I needed to do something with my career, and I wanted to be a professor, but I just serendipitously came across an ad in a newspaper. And yes, haha, this is dating me. We did use the newspaper, the printed newspaper, to look for jobs. And I saw this interesting opportunity to refurbish computers at an e-waste company on the east side of Buffalo. And I thought, I'm just going to check this out. I'm really interested in reusing things. I like the idea of repurposing things. Let's go see what this is about. And so I ended up working for this electronic waste company, and I became a partner of a small e-waste company. And what's really interesting when you think, wow, someone that studied art and philosophy and wanted to be a teacher is now, an entrepreneur running a scrap company. But believe it or not, the experience during my years of producing art deemed so valuable when I was looking at ways early on. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago, looking at, this expanding and evolving problem with e-waste, and it enabled me to be creative. And this is at a time when sustainability was just being talked about. Circular economy wasn't even a thing. So I was able to apply like the work that I had put into my art studies. I was able to apply that, all previous reuse and application of electronic components and parts in some of my art because I had made interactive clothing and interactive rooms. So that really, helped jumpstart some of the innovation that my partner and I were doing with our e-waste company, Electronic Recycling Technologies. But the philosophy piece paired with the bartending really allowed me, and I didn't know this intellectually, but it really built such a strong foundation for me to take a human perspective to applying all of this passion that I had not really realized I developed around sustainability. So, such a wild twist or turn, most would think, but it really turned out seamless and it made a lot of sense. That would have to be my biggest turning point. I'd say another one, the pivot from recycling and remanufacturing, because I spent the bulk of my 20 years in that, reverse logistics space, was taking that shift into the manufacturing solutions provider space, which was quite new to me. And I hadn't really realized how much of an impact the bulk of the value chain around manufacturing and supply chain can play such a significant role in enabling circularity and circular supply chains. So that shift was not planned. And yet here I am. And it's been a little over 7 years I've been at Jabil, and we're thriving. It's never been a dull moment.
It sounds it. And your story is familiar, having done a few of these and heard a lot of stories from our women engineers across the globe. It's interesting that a lot of times the path is very much nonlinear, and yours, is just amazing. And it just speaks to, importance of the arts, correct? It drove you to where you are today.
Yes. I mean, humans, individuals make up organizations. So if we aren't thinking about breaking bread or sharing a beverage, which is, like an unspoken language, it bridges borders and cultures. I work for a massive global organization. Those are very important aspects when you think about how are we going to go from 0 to 100, right? Crawl, walk, run, but to have a strong foundation of the respect, the deep care and compassion for human beings that make up an organization is really fundamental.
That's exactly what I was tapping into as well. That when you talk about relationships, it's the whole concept of sustainability and circular economies exist based on this, like you said, the caring of other people than yourselves, the community, the world. And, at Jabil, I understand that you work with global brands on sustainability and circular economy strategies, and this is across 16 different industries. Wow. What are the biggest sustainability challenges, though, that you're seeing kind of across the sectors right now?
Yeah, thanks, Larry. I would say there's no one size fits all for anything, for any product, for any strategy for sustainability and circular economy. So I'd have to say, like, the nuances of the regulatory landscape, geo-specific, challenges, what is actually feasible or not with, a particular raw material reapplication in, let's say taking a resin from one industry, let's say, consumer trying to apply it into healthcare or medical, right? There's a lot of different tentacles to consider, which is really important when, an organization's looking to build and develop a strong sustainability and circular economy, is to have people that are seeing and experiencing all the things that are happening around the globe to build a sustainable ecosystem. And the way you get there is building mini ecosystems, right? Whether it's based on geographies, sectors, or subsectors. I would say one of the biggest problems or gaps that we're seeing across the globe right now is the lack of data. So, regardless of what industry, organizations around the world did not build their businesses around emissions factors like we do with financial. So, it is a challenge when companies are trying to set targets and goals for greenhouse gas emission reduction without understanding where do they sit? What is the benchmark of a certain aspect of carbon emissions or within a product? So in order to get to that metric, we need data, primary data. And so bill of materials, full material declarations and weights and so on. And so it's been a challenge for all of us to figure out, take our siloed approach to just doing the due diligence, checking a box, and then trying to really build out circular strategies and business models. It's the data. It's all in the data. I'd say that's probably one of the second biggest challenges. And I would say third is the regulatory landscape. Compliance is something that we all have to adhere to. And I'd say like it's probably equal parts daunting and exciting and enlightening. It's the daunting piece is the uncertainty of not knowing, what does that mean for an organization when you look at, the European regulatory landscape and, we have California, but it's also how are we going to come together and collaborate within these, mini ecosystems and then eventually thrive through the circular evolution of a circular value chain.
That makes a lot of sense. On the surface, when you say that you're working across 16 different industries, it seems massive, but it also seems essential, right? To be able to break down the silos and see where all the interconnectivity is, right?
Absolutely. It really is. And I mean, when you think of, interoperability, right? How can we, once we have the data or the information, how do we monetize it? How do we maximize it? And how do we do that inside of our four walls for, an organization like Jabil? But then how can we bring that advocacy into industry as best practices, right?
Yes, because you need everybody on board for that circular economy to really work.
Correct. Yeah, not one person or one actor is going to do this. We really need to come together.
And that kind of leads, right in this idea of, the future, because we're nowhere near the finish line, it sounds like. So what excites you, most about the future of sustainable manufacturing and the circular economy? Are there any trends or technologies that are, making you feel really hopeful?
Yeah, Larry, that's a really great point. I think I get really excited about the future of sustainable manufacturing when it comes to circular economy because we have so much opportunity. There isn't this like legacy, there's a legacy way of doing things. There's the linear model, which is to take, make, waste, right? And the circular model is to make something, reuse it, right? Use for use. What's pretty cool is that we have such a huge opportunity. There's such a big enough gap that lends itself a hand to opportunity for organizations like Jabil to pave the path for innovation and technology, to test things out, build some lessons learned, to work with some uncommon players, right? Because the reality is competitors need to come together and work. We're part of many associations out there like RBA and GEA, previous IPC, but we're a member of INEMI and these sort of consortiums where different players across the value chain come together to innovate and identify gaps and drive, some really cool technology that doesn't exist out there. I really think that we are fortunate to be able to write this chapter, right? It's never been written. So I think that's pretty cool. In trends and technologies, I mean, I don't get too much into AI, but I think that organizations like Jabil are looking at AI is not going to go away. So how can we leverage it and really put it to work to fill those little gaps? And so when it comes to like utilizing technology and platforms, whether it's something that Jabil builds internally or it's through an acquisition, being able to wisely leverage I see some really cool stuff going on there. I'd say something else that's really been interesting is Jabil's take on the way that they're investing into the circular economy. For example, with the acquisition of Retronics. Retronics is a Scottish-based company that brings over 30 years of technology and innovation around the integrated chips. So chips that are embedded on printed circuit boards, the reclamation of those with this thermo technology, but then also this very niche approach at scale with efficiency to reball those chips and give them up to 3 times life. And we know in electronic products what has to exist, right? A PCBA, a board. So stuff like that stuff fascinates me. I think it's definitely fuel for me and my team to just keep looking at creative ways to evolve and accelerate the circular economy across Jabil and across the industry.
That's amazing. The work that you've done so far in this space, if you had to put your finger on one thing that you are proudest of as far as achievements and the work you've done thus far, what would that be?
Oh yeah, it's like just a no-brainer for me. I'd have to say design, circular design, or some people would call design for sustainability. I don't like to say eco design or design for environment because it's really important to think about the social aspect too. Because sometimes we think we're doing something and it might be better for the environment, but it might not be better socially. I never would have thought that I'd be involved in conversations and scenarios and modeling of products and their services around circularity, and I'm not an engineer. So being able to make that type of an impact, not only in the waste that exists today and trying to collaborate with customers and partners around the globe to avoid emissions and make the best possible outcome, of products and materials that exist today is being a part of the roadmap in paving the path of what does design for circularity look like across 16 or some industries. That's really, really fun stuff that I would have never imagined I'd be doing.
That's fantastic. With this talk and, across industries and the collective, many of our listeners are out there and they may or may not be working for a particular organization that is as strong as Jabil is in this shift to a circular economy. So what could our listeners, women in engineering, other allies in engineering, what can they do as an individual to kind of help? What part can they play in accelerating this shift to the circular economy?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of ways that women in engineering can play a role, regardless of whether they're running their own business, they're a consultant, they're working for a company like Jabil, regardless of scale, regardless of where they are in the world. I think that if women in engineering care about sustainability, there's so many consortia and associations that are out there right now, collaborating with various actors across the value chain. My suggestion would be get involved. LinkedIn's a great place because people are just putting all sorts of information. You can narrow the scope of what you're interested in learning about. But there are so many associations that are building the framework and guidance and standards around this stuff. Get involved. The organization that you're working for, get them involved, but get involved individually too. There's nothing that can stop you from, being an advocate, and being an advocate and learning yourself, personally is really going to add like layers of value to any organization when you can start connecting the dots and bring some cool ideas and say, hey, what do you think about doing this? Talking to this company and look at the strengths that they're doing in like this, dissolvable PCBAs. I'm just making stuff up, but just get out there. Get out there, get involved. There's never a dumb question. Ask questions. Let yourself be vulnerable, knowing that it comes from a place of passion and you're going to get so much more out of it than you'd ever imagine.
Well, yes, and it sounds like that taking that interest and taking that initiative and kind of jumping in also could possibly create a competitive advantage for you in the professional world as well, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Jabil, they're known for being a leader in sustainability. From your perspective, what has made Jabil such a great place for you and for just engineers? If you were speaking to someone and they were asking you like, hey, I'm an engineer, I was thinking about Jabil. What makes Jabil a great place to work for engineers to build their careers?
Yeah. Thanks, Larry. So, a couple things come to mind. Jabil is this global giant, so to speak. And as we've stated here a few times, we're manufacturing across so many different industries around the globe. There are people that are engineers that come to Jabil, and they don't have to be in an engineering role. Right? I see people in business development roles that are engineers. They could be in sustainability. They could be in any function within Jabil. Just like I took the foundation of art and philosophy and how I apply it today in my role in circular economy and sustainability, it's exactly the same for anyone else who's coming into an organization. They know engineering, it's all they've studied or it's all they've known. What's really cool about an organization like Jabil is there's uncapped opportunities. Once you get in and you start learning, you have a career development path inside of the organization that is living and breathing. You can change it at any moment as you're learning and experiencing and evolving as a human being. And there's, so many opportunities to tap into areas to develop or evolve and shift, whether someone has an interest in like maybe even trying to do some sort of a business unit role, but they were an engineer and they're young and they want to spend some time in Asia, right? They have this opportunity. So I'd say it's like so diverse. The appetite is so diverse at Jabil. And another thing that I'd like to share is that Jabil really cares about their people in communities. One of the things that I was a part of developing, and this was some years ago, was our first mental wellness and resiliency program. So I worked with some other folks within Jabil. We built that program, and then a group of us go around and we train people. And the reason that we built that program was because we wanted to educate them and offer them the tools to not only be the best version of themselves, to build confidence, mitigate their fears, so they understood how to capture, identify burnout. So that program, it's like resources like that, and that's just to name one of many that Jabil has that's open to all employees. So there is a really great culture for work-life balance and, to tie in, mentorship. That is a big part of Jabil as well. Studies do show that people that are growing up right now, young folks, let's say, probably looking at like the millennials and the Gen Z generation, those that have a mentor or a coach are more likely to be successful and have lower levels of depression. And so Jabil has formal and informal mentoring programs because it's just as equally important that the employee is well as possible, as healthy as possible, as it is for, the intellect and the results that they're driving across the organization.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like the opportunities and that kind of culture of innovation and the support is about as expansive as the company itself across the globe. It's a perk, certainly, of having a company. You were sharing a couple of those examples of being in multinational corporation to be able to have those opportunities that you might not find in other companies. And it sounds really exciting that Jabil offers that and provides the support and really wants you to be the best and kind of help you through whatever your career path is looking like, knowing that it could, like yourself, you had mentioned, it could change. You never know. You never know 5 years from now.
There's one thing that is inevitable, and that is change.
That is very true. This has been, oh, wow. It's just been a really inspiring conversation. Before we wrap things up, though, for any of our women, our allies listening, who might feel a little stuck in their careers, right? And, they might not be sure what's next for them. What's the career advice that you would share with them?
Yeah, thanks. I would say first and foremost, embrace your authenticity. And authenticity is not black and white. And principles can change, values can change, passions can change. It's actually most likely, they will, because our experiences change our perspectives and they can build resilience. They can build confidence. They might not take away fears, but when you have confidence in something, it just makes it easier to transition. And I'd say, really embrace your authenticity. For women listening who are feeling stuck in their careers or they're just really not sure, like, what should they be doing? What are they passionate about? And they're feeling overwhelmed or confused. Take a step back, create a vision board. The vision board could be whatever you want. In the center should be something that is your purpose, your why, and it could be you and maybe your children or other family members or dogs and things are around it and it expands out. Create a vision board. It starts somewhere and it's likely going to change. And, I would say don't hold yourself back. If there's something that you're interested in, poke around, talk to people, network, go out there and submit a resume or an application and do an interview. It's okay. You don't owe anyone anything. There's nothing wrong with, testing out your interview skills. You're always going to learn something during any experience. The greatest people in the world, the greatest teachers, the most brilliant human beings still learn every day from the people that they're teaching. Don't hold yourself back. Oftentimes, we create our own barriers that we can't do that or that's not possible. If you don't ask, you don't know. And if you don't take a leap of faith, if you don't take that stride, you don't know. So just try it. As long as you're doing something good and you're not harming anyone or anything, branch out. Step away from that fear. See how you feel afterwards. You're going to give yourself a pat on the back. Look at your poster of Wonder Woman and say, hey, I'm really proud of myself. Nothing bad can come from this.
It's funny you say that because I think as I've grown older, whenever I feel a little uncomfortable with something or if a little scared or nervous, I now lean into that because I know that's where the magic happens usually in those. That's where the change, that's where the growth happens.
It absolutely does in those uncomfortable moments because we should be more uncomfortable than we are, shining and standing at the top of the hill. If it was always like that and it was perfect and pretty, what goals and aspirations would we have? What would we be striving for? So I hope that that can help inspire women and women engineers when they're thinking about what does the next 5 to 10 years look like? What does tomorrow look like? Stop by our booth, talk to some of these people from Jabil. Feel free to reach out to any of us, and we're happy to be here of service and really looking forward to your joining our booth.
Yeah. And to be honest, any listener, engineering or otherwise, I was inspired myself by everything you've shared in your experience. So I thank you again, Cassie, for joining us today. It sounds like one piece that advice too that's worth sharing is that it certainly helps to be with an organization that really celebrates and supports your growth through those years. And for our listeners who want to keep the conversation going with Jabil, you'll have that opportunity twice at We25 in New Orleans. You can visit Jabil at booth 1610 at the We25 Career Fair, where you can meet their team and discuss career opportunities with their organization. And Jabil is also a proud supporter of SWE's Collegiate Leadership Institute networking event on Saturday, October 25th, which is the dedicated space designed to foster meaningful personal connections and ignite attendees' journeys in SWE's year-round CLI program. Please check out our website. When the mobile app becomes available, you can go in and make sure you add that to your schedule, and that's we25.swe.org. We25 takes place this October 23rd to 25th, and you really don't want to miss it. The energy, the keynote, the sessions, the networking opportunities. It's SWE's annual conference, and everything is just, you'll find incredibly unmatched to any conference you've ever attended. You can register today at we25.swe.org to join us, and be sure to stop by the We25 Diverse Podcast Studio to get some diverse swag while you're there. I'm Larry Guthrie, and from all of us at SWE, thanks for listening.